Hi everyone, welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to talk about Superpowers Year 3 by Drew Hayes. So in this review I'm going to add a small spoiler section towards the end because in this book stuff really starts to go down and I want to talk about it. So without further ado, make sure you hit that like button and subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so already, and let's begin. So Year 3 is the third book in the Superpowered series by Drew Hayes, and in Year 3 we have a nice little shakeup because of some stuff that happened at the end of Year 2. So mild spoiler for the end of Year 2, actual total spoiler for the end of Year 2. At the end of Year 2, during the final team match, Nick brainjacked Vince by way of using Rich's power of like illusion casting thing. He put him in a scenario in his head that would force Vince to use his powers to his full degree and like full strength or whatever. And Nick wanted to do that because the government people over the superheroes wanted to basically kick Vince out of school because of who his dad is. Luckily, because Nick controls luck, but he, as smart as he is, his plan went exactly according to plan. He's got like lawyers and all this kind of stuff, so he insulated himself and all his friends through the law to make sure that they couldn't get in trouble, so that he was the only one to get expelled. So at the start of Year 3, Nick has been expelled from the HCP. His memories have been wiped. Year 3 is probably my favorite book in the series, and despite having what has to be my least favorite chunk of the entire series, I think that actually says a lot about the quality of it overall. Like, my favorite book has my least favorite chunk of the entire series in it. Because this is where Drew really starts to break his formula. He stopped using just basic, like, time markers like spring break and winter break and all this stuff to just track time and track events. It's stuff starting to really go down because the characters are getting more involved in the greater story, the deeper conspiracy and all this stuff. So there's less of an emphasis on their schoolwork, even though that's still a very big deal. There's less of an emphasis on it, and there's more emphasis on trying to figure this stuff out because they can't exactly ask a lot of adults for help because they don't the circle is small right now because they don't know if they're correct. While Drew starts to kind of step away from the time markers of the holidays and all that kind of stuff, he still holds on to it for a good chunk of the first part of this book because I feel like the book goes like regular stuff that we've seen in Year 1 and Year 2, like normal school stuff and all that, and then it just kind of flips. Like, information comes out, and then they basically it's time to go. Like, we got to get this information. Stuff's going down. Like, it's all that stuff. So around that time is when he like flips the tone and all that. It goes from just being happy, calm, fun, whimsical, like college stuff to actual deep mystery and like conspiracy and like holy crap, can we trust this person? Can we trust that person? Like, it turns into all that kind of stuff like in the flip. Like, it's really good. So since I ramble so much, I want to avoid spoilers. So I'm going to break down what I liked and disliked about this book by way of 3 pros and 3 cons. So let's start off with the cons so that we can end the review on a positive note. As I mentioned before, Nick doesn't have his memories, so he's less of a part of the group right now. So everything that's kind of going on is like we're following main group and then we're following Nick. So as a result, because the two, things that are happening between the two different sets of people are different, so they're paced different. So it has a jarring kind of effect of this pace, that pace, and then kind of doing that kind of thing. So it takes me out of it, and it feels slower. And because of the memory wipe, Nick is functionally a totally different person. So he's not even the character that I've grown to love. So it just makes that entire part of the book drag. Like, So, con number 2. While this feels like a complete and total cop-out, like, I don't have a lot of cons for this book. I really don't. Like, my second con is, again, it deals with Nick. It feels like Nick was sidelined in the beginning, and Nick is my favorite character. He's become my favorite character probably since somewhere in book 1 or something like that. Con number 3. So my third con I actually have to say for the spoiler section of this review because it's a very specific situation that is totally a spoiler, so I don't want to give it away in the non-spoiler section, even though I think I probably rambled away some spoilers, and I'm sorry. So let's go on to the pros now. Pro number 1, the world expansion. Drew does some good world building in this book. He expands the lore like well beyond outside of Lander University. Like we go outside of the HCP that we've been following the entire time, and I really dug that. I was always so super curious about like what's the world like outside of school. Like how are like 'cause there's definitely got to be other supers out there that aren't a superhero but have a fairly powerful ability, but they're not a criminal and stuff like that. So I always kind of wonder how like how other people are, because they always imply that so many people on the planet have abilities, and we don't see a lot of that. Most of the interaction we get is between the people that are trying to become superheroes, which makes sense because what the story is. But I always kind of like the idea, like finding out about stuff like the Corpies. We did in the spinoff or whatever. Like finding out about stuff like that is really cool. So along with the expansion of just the world and like the government corporations and the government departments and different things like that, Drew also kind of expands on the nature of the antagonist or whatever. Like this story has primary antagonists, but there are also other antagonists that come from the outside and stuff. There's a group of people who are supes, but they aren't superpowers. They're functionally just super terrorists, really, Larry. They don't like the idea of people with powers working for the government and becoming superheroes or whatever. They kind of feel like that's like state-sanctioned slavery and stuff like that, and they're very Magneto in a way. They kind of feel like they should be ruling humanity, not the other way around and all this kind of stuff. So I like the idea. I like the fact that Drew incorporated these new kind of villain people, but they aren't just, mustache twirling, just evil for the sake of evil. Like, they have their own ideology and they have the reasonings and stuff behind reasons and stuff like that. And, I mean, I don't really think it's just, power for the sake of power, like, might makes right and all that kind of stuff. I don't know if it's really that, but the way he presents it, it works well in my opinion, and I like it a lot. It's a great expansion on the world and on the people and the type of groups that exist in this world. So, pro number 2. So I mentioned it before in my Superpowers Year 2 review, which you can check out here on the channel. The way that Drew illustrates these abilities, he has such mastery over the powers that he created for these characters, or picked and choose for the characters, that it continues to be impressive. He expands, like I mentioned before, that the powers are power. This is a theory. It's not even confirmed within the book. The theory is all powers are powers because their powers. That's a lot of saying powers. The powers are powered because their powers are too powerful for their bodies, so they manifest in very malfunctioning kind of ways and stuff. So when the assumption is whenever any powered undergoes the procedure to become a super, they are going to be more powerful than a super that has the same type of ability. So Drew continues this trend here. So we get an expansion on Roy/Herschel's power, and we understand the nature of it and how he's more like his dad than they thought they were and stuff like that. And it just takes this very simple idea of, it's very Hulk-like, regular guy turns into somebody super strong and all this kind of stuff. So it takes this very basic concept and like twist it and make it unique. It makes it feel so original. I think it's done so well, and I like it so much. Like, I love Drew's ability to characterize powers and the way he's able to write them and illustrate them. Like, the picture that just pops in my head so easily and effortlessly. It's like, oh, so well done. I want a TV show of this. I've probably said it 100 million times, and I want to say it 1 million times more. This needs to be a show, because it's basically adult version of My Hero Academia. Well, college age. Adult, I don't know. It's My Hero Academia with college age people. Pro number 3. So, my third pro, which is one of the bigger ones, is just the way Drew was able to kind of flip the tone of the story as he was telling it. So, as I mentioned before, the early part of the book is fairly slow. I'm not a big fan of it. But it's all like living in the tone of just college life, like, regular stuff. And then as stuff starts to happen and we start to get more into the understory and it starts to become like the top story, the main story, then the tone kind of changes to this mysterious kind of conspiracy feel and all this stuff. And it's a little sleeker and a little darker. So let's pick back up with the con that I left off on. So the con that I was talking about was the memory wipe for Nick. So I didn't like that they wiped his memory and he reverted back to the Vegas version of himself, which is a completely different character. It's the entire method, like he's a completely different character, and I don't like him as much, and like so it wasn't that fun. And it kind of like the entire bit of the book where Nick is Nicholas and not Nick Campbell. He is apart from being annoying, the entire thing, like he is still trying to figure stuff out about everything they've learned so far about the conspiracy and stuff. Like they know all kinds of information. Nick is like the smartest person in the Millbrook crew. So Dean Blaine and the other people that like know about what's going on, like they are working with him because he's got all this Vegas experience and like connections and all this kind of stuff. So even while like they're basically waiting for him to find a way to get his memories back so they can bring him into the fold proper. So they set up a situation that allows his memories to come back, but it feels like such a waste of time. The only thing I can assume is that it was like them covering their asses. Like it can be proven that his memories weren't wiped, so they had to wipe them and give him a chance to get them back or something like that in order to make sure that they recovered. But nothing ever really comes of that. So it makes me feel like them having a teacher from the school wipe his memories only to then just basically allow them to reverse it like 4 months later or less than that is wasted. Like it feels like so much wasted time. Like it was a lot of setup for like the Sons of Progress, I think that's what they're called, the terrorist group of people who don't want to be superheroes, they're just supers and they want to like rule humanity or whatever. Like they show up. So the conflict that Nick is dealing with while he's Nicholas, he's dealing with an old enemy from Vegas. So when that guy shows up, he enlists the help of those people. So I guess the entire purpose of it was to string those people in. That's why it's a con, because I can't wrap my head around the way that entire part was written. I can't wrap my head around the purpose that there must have been. I just didn't need the memory wipe. I didn't need the Nicholas that wasn't even going to stick around. He didn't contribute much of anything. I didn't need it. I just simply did not need it. So I'm probably going to end it here. So that'll do it for my Superpowers Year 3 book review. So if you like this video, please give it a thumbs up. And if you haven't done so, subscribe to the channel. And I will talk to you all next time. Peace.